Hi everyone, this is Winnie or Miss Tang. We are learning to introduce the main character, the setting, and call to adventure in our orientation. This is because we are engaging our reader in the story by setting the scene, the mood, and by giving our audience a reason why the character is going on this adventure. We are also encouraging our readers to invest their time in reading our story and to imagine another world. For our orientation, part 1, our success criteria includes including an interesting title. We are also going to introduce our protagonists and describe what they are like before becoming a hero. We are going to introduce other characters like maybe the antagonist or the allies. We are also going to describe the setting and include the mission that the protagonist is being asked to accomplish. And then we're going to include engaging details by using adjectives to build descriptions, and we are going to include adverbial phrases to provide additional details for our readers. And we already have figured out that we have our main character Amber, and she is going to include the themes of bravery and being able to speak up for yourself in our story. And so in her story, her antagonist is Viviana, who is a bit of a bully. So we're going to come up with a title. So I'll show you what a good, great, amazing, and fabulous title looks like. Good one. So the title could be Amber and the Bully. A great title could be Amber and the Bully of Bubbleville. So Bubbleville is going to be where our story is set. An amazing title could be Amber and the Biggest Bully of Bubbleville. So we're using that alliteration and we're going to add in some adjectives as well. Or our fabulous title is going to be Amber and the Browbeating Bully of Bubbleville. If you're not sure what browbeating means, I encourage you to have a guess. See if you can figure out from the words what you think the word browbeating means. Now, in our previous videos, we did plan, and using these prompting questions, we also came up with the setting. So we're going to use that when we come up with our orientation. And we also came up with our call to adventure. Before I show you what a good, great, and amazing orientation looks like, I'm going to show you how I'm going to write a fabulous one. So we've already got our interesting title. Now we are going to introduce the protagonist and the antagonist in the story. In your orientation, you can always start off with an onomatopoeia, so a sound. You can start off with some people talking, a description even. What I'm going to do in the beginning of this story is I'd like to establish the two characters. So I want to show what Amber is like before she becomes brave and she is able to speak up for herself. And I also want to show the antagonist, the bully of the story. So we can start off with Viviana saying something mean, like they could be in the middle of their cheerleading training practice, and they could be, Amber could be trying to run to her final position in the cheerleading dance, but then she knows she's going to get there a little bit late. So we can start off with, "Can you be any slower?" hissed Viviana. Amber tried to run to her final position of the cheerleading dance, but it was too late. The upbeat mix of pop music had already stopped. Viviana grinned proudly with her chin up, one arm up and the other on her hip. So if you saw the writing, the description of the setting, you'll know that I've pulled that from our planning, the upbeat mix of pop music. That's what we can hear. Next, we'll describe Amber and how she's feeling during this routine. So because she's working really, really hard, she might be huffing and puffing. She might be sweating a bit because, she's working out. And we'll also make sure that we describe what Amber looks like. Amber was huffing and puffing with both her hands on her hips, trying to catch her breath. She wiped sweat off her forehead and gulped down water from her pink metal water bottle to soothe her dry mouth. And then let's put in some adjectives to build our description of Amber. Amber had a round face, stocky frame, red curly hair, and emerald green eyes. She wore her signature red cheerleading bow, a gift from her dad for her 9th birthday. It had been 2 years since she had received it, and she still wore it today. So we're giving a hint to our audience that it was her 9th birthday 2 years ago, so she must be around 11 years old. Okay, the next next thing we'll do is describe the setting. So we know that they are in Bubbleville Public Schools School Hall. And in our previous video, we did describe the setting. So I'm going to pull that paragraph and pop it in here. The Chaotic Cats cheerleading team were practicing after school in preparation for their first cheerleading competition. They had covered Bubbleville School Hall with thick blue mats to jump, tumble, and do stunts on. The hall had a high ceiling. This was essential, especially as flyers like Amber were constantly being tossed upwards during the stunts in the routine. Okay, now we'll describe a little bit more on Viviana and the dynamic between her and Amber. Viviana flicked her brown ponytail with one hand and stalked past Amber. "You're looking a bit red there. Hope this routine isn't too much for you," smirked Viviana, low enough for Amber to hear. She's making that comment on the down low and only Amber can hear. So that's how she's being a bit of a bully. Or not a bit, she is a bully. Amber could feel, so we're going to talk about how Amber feels about this, and we're going to show how she's feeling. Obviously, she's feeling embarrassed, so let's write a description showing that. Amber could feel more heat flare up on her face and her freckles shrinking back until they were invisible. Okay, now when we came up with the antagonist Viviana, we knew that once she says something mean to Amber, she straight away says something nice to someone else to try to cover it up. So she's going to declare in a big loud voice, maybe to her coach, maybe she'll praise her. So let's put, "That was a great routine you've created for us, Mrs. Robinson, the best one yet," declared Viviana, her voice echoing through the hall. "Thank you, Viviana. You're very kind," beamed Mrs. Robinson. So we're putting that sentence in there to try to contrast it, because we know that Viviana is a bully, but other people don't know because she only says these mean comments to Amber. Okay, now we'll give a little bit of a description of Mrs. Robinson now, because we have just introduced her, so we need to give the audience an idea of what she looks like. Mrs. Robinson was their cheerleading coach and Amber's Year 5 teacher. She pushed her brown glasses up her nose and moved a stray strand of black hair behind her ear. She scribbled a couple of notes on her notepad and motioned the team to come forward. Okay, now she's going to need to tell the team, and we'll also need to give Amber a goal to work towards. So Mrs. Robinson will say something like, "As you know, our first cheerleading competition is coming up in a couple of weeks. This means that we will also need to nominate our cheerleading captain, someone who is respectful, positive, persistent, hardworking, inspiring, brave, and a good role model," said Mrs. Robinson. Now we'll need to put in a bit of a reaction from other people. So Viviana, she's going to react now. So we're going to describe how she does that. Obviously, Viviana is really competitive. She is already the school captain. She wants to be a cheerleading captain as well. So let's describe her. Let's even use a simile as well. So we'll say, "Viviana quickly sat up as straight as a ruler. She nodded furiously and smiled pointedly at her teammates. Amber sighed and rolled her eyes. Viviana was already the school captain. She was loved and praised by the teachers and admired by all students. Almost all students." Yep, so the next thing we're going to do is wrap up this part of the orientation. So we've already figured out in our planning that Mrs. Robinson is going to encourage Amber to go for the cheerleading captain, but she's going to politely decline. All right, so let's write this down. After rolling up all the blue mats and packing up the equipment, Mrs. Robinson pulled Amber aside. She asked if Amber was going to put her hand up for the cheer captain role. Amber shook her head. "You're a great cheerleader, Amber. You're hardworking, positive, and I think you'll make a good role model," praised Mrs. Robinson. "Just consider it." Okay, and then we're going to leave it there, and that will be our orientation part 1. Now I'm going to give you a challenge. Your challenge is I'm going to give you what it looks like, the good, great, amazing, and fabulous orientation, and you have to try to figure out why have they been separated into these 3 or 4 different levels struggles and what is the difference between them. What makes them good, what makes them great, what makes them amazing, what makes them fabulous. And I'll give you a hint. Make sure you have a look at the success criteria. In part 2, we're going to introduce the mentor of the story, so Rufus's dad, who will further encourage her to go for the role, because at the moment, even though Mrs. Robinson is encouraging her, Amber is saying no to that call to adventure. We'll sprinkle in some foreshadowing to give the readers some clues of what might happen in the complication of the story. See you in my next video. Bye!